Okay, I'll tell you a funny story, kind of a funny story. It kind of illustrates how my friend Cliff was anyway, that had the wrecking yard here. I couldn't help but to like the guy because he was this way. But that front part of the house there with the steps and everything, that's an added on thing. That wasn't always here. And I remember when he built that, going back quite a ways now, but I do remember when he built that on there. Anyway, he had his son was a contractor, and his son was actually doing the work. And building inspector happened to come by, and they were working here. And the building inspector says to Cliff, uh, "You're going to measure that, and you're going to bring the measurements in to me." He said, "I want the measurements for that." So he said, "You're going to measure it, and you're going to bring it in for me." And Cliff said, "Well, you can go ahead and measure it if you want to." "No," he said, "I'm not going to measure it. You're going to measure it. You're going to measure it for me, and then you're going to bring me the measurements at my office, at the township office, you know." Anyway, Cliff said, "No," he said, "I'm not going to do that." But he said, "I'm not going to stop you. If you want to measure it, you go right ahead, you know. I'm not going to interfere with you if you want to measure it." Anyway, he said, "No, no." He said, "You're going to measure that, and you're going to bring me the measurements at the township office." Cliff said, "Well, I'm telling you, I'm not going to do that." Well, anyway, the guy laughed. The building inspector laughed. A while later, Cliff happened to be at the township office, and he had to walk past the building inspector's office to go wherever he needed to go to do whatever he was doing. And the building inspector saw him go by, and he yelled at him. He said, "Come in here." He said, "Mr. Calford, I want to speak to you." So Cliff goes into his office. The building inspector says, "Do you have those measurements for me?" And Cliff said, "No, I don't." And the building inspector says, "Well, I thought I told you to measure that up and to bring those numbers into me." And Cliff said, "Yes, you did. And I told you I wasn't going to." And then he just turned around and walked out, you know. Anyway, that was Cliff. I always liked Cliff. I always thought very highly of him because he would do things like that, you know. But anyway, but he didn't have to. I mean, you're not allowed to interfere with them if they do it, of course. If the guy had tried to go in there and measure the thing or whatever, and he tried to stop him, he'd gotten himself into some trouble for that. But he wasn't legally obligated to do the guy's job for him, you know. Anyway, just the story about my old friend Cliff, the scrap man, you know. Yeah, quite a character anyway. We talk to you later.